We're live.
Thank you. Okay. We're at the Eureka Springs Auditorium. This is the Eureka Springs Parks and Recreation Commission regular monthly meeting. It's Tuesday, October 18th, 2022, 6:04 p.m. May I have roll call, please, Sue?
Yes. Carissa Litherland?
Here.
Ruth Hager?
Here.
Mark Ingram?
Here.
Sue Hubbard is here.
All right, we have a quorum. The chair votes, we'll have a quorum. I'll be voting. The agenda. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I have a comment first.
I do too, but go ahead.
Okay. On the committee reports, we only have Planning and Trails Committee on there, but we also need the hiring committee report.
That's in my notes too.
Okay.
I couldn't decide whether to have it as part of my chair notes or to have it as part of the discussion after a motion.
Okay.
So let's just have a, well, someone make a motion and we'll make it a discussion. How's that?
Okay. And the motion will be to approve.
Approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as submitted by Scott.
I second.
Carissa. Okay, discussion? Mark?
Now, I would like to make sure that we add on the committee reports to Planning and Trails, the hiring committee.
And there is no trail, so that can be removed.
Well, I was, and my comments, sorry, are that just remembering and then looking back in past things, over the years, this part of the agenda has quite often just said committee reports.
Yeah.
Other times it said standing committee reports, and then the other thing said other committees. Other times it just says committee. So this is not a standard thing that has been the same every time anyway. It just says committee reports. To me, it implies the committees that exist. They shouldn't be listed. If they are listed, I don't think, I don't know.
I agree. I just put committee reports and
Okay.
that'll cover
The
it.
agenda as written says planning and trails, but it also says committee reports.
Yeah.
So to me, that implies you could give other committee reports without having to change this
Agreed.
today. But in the future, it should just
I
say.
agree.
Okay?
I'll remove that next time.
That sound logical? That's like we're not
Yes.
doing things right? I think that sounds right. It says committee reports, so, okay. Any other discussion? All in favor of the agenda?
Can I make
Oh, sorry,
point of
Scott.
order,
I'm sorry.
please?
Yes, please.
Since there's been a motion and a second, if you want to change the agenda, then there has to be a separate motion to modify the current motion.
Oh, that's true.
Or it could be voted and not approved. But since there's a motion that's been seconded, there has to
Right.
be a motion to actually amend that motion.
But I thought we just discussed that we weren't going to amend.
I was trying to say, do we need to amend it? Because it says committee reports.
Okay. So
It doesn't
you'll
say
leave it-
exclusively planning and trails. Do y'all think, as part of our discussion still, do y'all think that that's correct?
Yeah, I thought you were saying remove
Well, I think
specifics. so.
that could be done too. We could,
I think it's good as it is, and we could just go ahead and discuss its committee reports. It's another committee. We can discuss it just because it's not listed on there specifically doesn't mean we can't discuss it. I mean, even under director's reports, it has Scott Miskell, but if somebody else had something to say under director's report, doesn't mean we can't talk about it because it wasn't Scott. So, I think committee reports can include all committee reports.
well,
As it is.
that seems logical
without
and
changing it.
procedurally correct to me, but I didn't want anybody else to be. Do you fine? Fine?
Fine with me, yes.
Okay, yeah, and then in the future, we can have it just blank committee reports. Okay. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Chair voting. The agenda is good. Okay, public comments. Do I see Sharon? So for some reason I never see from here. I always feel like I'm looking in the dark. Yes, it is Sharon.
Good evening, Sharon Roberts, Eureka Springs citizen. Thank you to Scott for asking members of the Native Plant Collaborative to view and make recommendations for the restoration of the stream bed crossing excavator disturbance on Hobo Trail in Black Bass Lake. Findings determined that it will take time for the stream bed and riparian buffer to settle. Meeting the disturbed sediment and stream bank has to show us what it's going to do with time, rain, and water flow. Restoration by planting is not possible at this time, and the area will need to be monitored. It's good practice to slow down when planning for trail optimizations, especially across or through stream beds. Bring in naturalists at the planning stage in order to be proactive in protecting our natural resources. Preventing a problem will always be more efficient and cost-effective than fixing a problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Anyone else? Okay. Chair comments. I have a couple things I want to briefly touch on. One of which is, tonight I want to make sure we really concentrate on getting the financial statements passed, so I don't want to ramble on and on, so someone stop me if I do. But I want to talk about the search committee, and I want to briefly say that thank you for y'all for doing that. At some point, we need to get together and talk about procedures and policies. I'd like to see y'all tonight when we talk about committee reports. Let us know policies, procedures. I think that's something we haven't really, I've been hearing lots of public asking me when, what, how, where. I think it's time to nail that down tonight. Even if we don't know, to announce to the public, we don't know the dates yet, but we will decide on a date for this, we will decide on a date for that. So hopefully when we come up, let's make sure we address that. Along those same notes, it's a small town. I know some people who have applied. We all know some people who have applied, who might be applying. Let's make sure we're mindful of the fact that talking to people who are applying, or we think might be applying, or will be applying right now, can seem like backdoor politics, campaigning a little bit. And I don't know how y'all, if you agree with me, but I feel like that a little bit. I feel like I'm trying to pay attention to the idea that, again, people asking me and then me wondering and thinking about it. It's also because it's our habit sometimes, and shouldn't be as commissioners, to talk to the staff sometimes, especially if we're friends with them. We have to remember that we can talk to the staff about things that are pertinent, but some things should go through the director down to the staff, not from us directly to staff. That was more of an aside, but sometimes I think this search right now is just causing a lot of conversation that probably should be more, more measured. That kind of think about it. And it is hard when they're friends. I've had people call and ask me questions, and, Sam will call and ask me a question about something. I say, Sam, don't ask me this on the phone right now. I know he's not thinking, but that's kind of what I mean, is we all have to be careful of that. And I know tonight you'll give a committee report, and we'll talk about, I'll find out the procedures. I have not heard back from Kim today. I'm sure y'all have been in touch with City about their procedures, so I want to make sure we get that process, especially the timeline, the dates, kind of out there, or talk about when we'll know the dates. I think I'll save these comments for your committee reports and my comments on that. I have some things to say about the process when you receive the resumes, receive the applications, how we want to store them, receive them, keep them confidential or not. I want to find out what y'all have already said before I make just repeat what y'all already may be doing. Including when you're going to present, because y'all are a search committee. We know that. You'll take your findings, you'll triage the information. You're not hiring anybody. I think I'm having lots of public people ask me, are they hiring? No, y'all aren't doing the hiring. We know that. We know that. I'm just trying to make it said out loud on camera so people can say, yes, we know that about ourselves. We know that this is a search committee, and the information is being gathered, and when they're ready to present to the whole commission, that's when decisions will be made. So that's actually all I had to say. Scott, you have a director's report?
Yes, thank you. And I would like to just comment on that. I think it is appropriate, given where we are right now in the transition, that, in fact, I think Sue and I talked briefly today that I've had a lot of questions as well, people asking me about hiring and whatnot. And I think it'll be really important that we get the word out as much as possible, but I think we should have one site that probably the city website, that has the actual job posting, and everything else just direct people to there. My concern is sometimes, because there's so many different websites and blogs and different things, that if you start making changes, you may forget to make one somewhere. So I would just respectfully ask that we try to keep that to where we have one source for the actual information for how one applies, or anything else just directs them to that location. So I'd also say that we're making good progress on that transition, I should say. As you know, we have our third quarter financial statements ready to hopefully be approved tonight. The City Council is supposed to review those next week. The year-end report I'm working on right now. The budget for next year we're working on right now. And so we'll be ready to present all that well in advance. And I'm not sure what your time frame will be for selecting a new director, but if it's possible to have that person in place before the end of the year, that would be good too, to help get some additional transition and just be able to let that person know what's upcoming and et cetera. So everything seems to be going real well as far as making that transition. So happy to say that. A couple of things, and then like you, Ruth, I don't want to spend too much time, but the Christmas lights have all been tested and they're ready to go. We'll begin that November 1st. I would also like to say that we never seem to have too many volunteers helping, but we sure wouldn't mind to have a few. So if anyone would like to help with the decoration, the Christmas decorations, please let us know. Also, the city is kicking in, I think, $12,500, I think was the number, for some purchase of some new Christmas decorations. We talked about that probably being for Plainer Hill, so it won't affect our parks per se, but still we decorate those. That also led us to some discussions about sort of a 5-year plan for holidays. Things like 4th of July came up, and I explained it wasn't in our budget this year, but at any rate, the point is we'd like to come up with a 5-year plan to help guide how we're going to handle not just decorations, but holidays and other events. I did talk with Carissa about that. It's something that the Master Planning Committee makes the most sense to have that Master Planning Committee sort of do that. So I'll work with them as much or as little as they need to try to get that done. I would, in fact, I'm very happy to say that we are training much of our staff in dealing with invasive species. As all of you know, we have spent a lot of time over the last couple of years focusing on native plants, growing them in the greenhouse, planting them in various locations. But the invasive species is kind of the first step of the problem that we have with the lack of native plants. Is a lot of times the invasive plants choke out the native plants. We sent, I think, 3 today to a class on invasive species removal. There's another class coming up in November, first 2 weeks of November, and we'll send some others. I'm also going to add in the budget, for the proposed budget for next year, a position for a person whose job it would be to deal with invasive species and native plants, et cetera. Whether that can be funded or not, I don't know, but I think that it's such an important thing. It's at least I want to get that dialogue out there and started, even if it's the last thing I do. Perhaps if not next year, in a soon budget, perhaps that position can be funded. The road repairs at Lake Leatherwood, unfortunately, it's going to be too late to get the chip sealing done until the spring. They just can't deal with the irregularities of the weather this time of year. So although I think I reported last time, the warranty work that we had on the work that we had done last year is now finally done, but we won't be able to get the chip sealing done until the spring. I was going to mention something about the truck, but I think that's actually on the agenda. So let's leave it at that.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind, let's remind everybody, just because it's always so unclear, the city and the parks have this collaboration with the Christmas decorations. Our staff puts up the decorations.
Yes.
The city pays for the actual decorations themselves, correct? No?
No, that's not correct.
We store them too, don't we? Are they?
Well, we store them. CAPC used to have some storage during the pandemic. That fell through just because the person we needed to get a key from wasn't available. Hopefully, we can get that going again. We have a small amount, I think $2,500 for Christmas decorations in our budget this year. We also have some more that we could use under events. So that's a possibility if we needed some. But in reality, no, we tend to pay for the decorations ourselves. What I had mentioned in this meeting this morning was that perhaps, since the city is coming up with some money for some decorations, perhaps they would buy the ones that would go up on Plainer Hill, which isn't really a park. The rules that apply to the money we spend really kind of indicate, it should be in the parks. Not that we don't do things in surrounding areas, but we do purchase our own decorations, although in the past, and I mentioned CAPC, in the past they've given us money. I think at least a few years ago we were getting in the $10,000 range. So that was helping us to replenish things as we go. But
Okay.
no, we do need to have that in our budget. The Christmas decorations really are, a lot of them are just really getting old and dingy, and if we don't start, over like a 5-year plan, we're going to get to the point where we're just doing a whole lot less, which has already started to happen, or we're going to just have really, really poor-looking decorations. So again, the budget that I'll prepare will be a proposed budget. I probably won't be here when you vote on it, but it will at least suggest that we need to start putting some aside for decorations, a little more than we have.
Okay.
Is
Good.
the
Can I
proposal-
interrupt on
Yes,
this
sir.
one? How did parks get involved in putting up Christmas decorations for the city? And why would we continue it? I get all the parks and all the springs that we are responsible for, but why all up and down the streets and stuff like that? How did that become a thing?
I really don't know, and past commissioners have asked that as well. In reality, the only thing that we decorate that is not parks is Plainer Hill. So it's the garden area itself,
And that's-
which is something that we do manage anyway, and then the railing along the sidewalk. So,
Okay,
so
that's all?
that's all that we do that's outside of our parks. Occasionally, I think somebody once asked, I was still the gardener, they asked me to hang the wreath on the door here and, for the odd. But as far as anything substantial, just Plainer Hill.
Okay. That
Yeah,
seems reasonable.
it's always been a little
Yeah.
like that. I think because parks had the staff already down there doing it, it just became one of those, do the city part too? I don't know, but, and then the city applies for the money. It's just a kind of a
Yeah.
weird,
The Plainer Hill is the only thing additional than it. I don't have any.
yeah.
No,
issues.
that's really it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Question, is the proposal that you put a provision aside each year to spend in the 5th year, or that you buy decorations each year?
Well,
Or is that to be determined?
I guess that's to be determined, and really to be
Planning.
determined in large part from your committee. So
No pressure.
we talked about the need to maybe meet and talk about a few of these things, get some specifics down. But, yeah, we are at the point where we need some planning, and, yeah. so.
Okay.
Anything else?
Anything else? No? Speaking of, next we have committee reports. Planning, do you have anything to report?
Yes, we met on the 13th of October. We did have some technical issues with the library, and one thing just to note is we do need to make sure when we're scheduling meetings, we had a planning committee meeting, and there was another parks committee meeting on a different day, and they got changed, and ours got canceled. We just need to be clear and add the committee name onto it. It was nobody's fault. It's just they didn't realize there were more than one committees for the parks. So we were outside. So we didn't get a chance to continue reviewing the documents that had been, sort of collated, but it was actually quite good timing. We had Juanita there, who is the Leatherwood manager, and we started talking to her about her long-range plan and what she was doing for her business plan. So that was a very useful discussion. We also had Susan from the parks, the new admin, join, which was good. And we had Sharon Roberts join, and actually we've invited Sharon to join the committee as a voice of the Eureka Springs citizens. There are some other areas that are underrepresented in the committee, so we will be, looking to invite some other people. I'm not quite sure what the process is, but probably put a notice in the paper that the long-range planning is looking for particular people with various, that would represent various areas that are stakeholders or part of, the areas that are not well-formed in what we've already got. We do plan to have another meeting next Tuesday, and actually it was timely that you were talking about schedules and timelines. The goal there is to do a rough draft of how long we think this process will take, and when some key milestones will be, and we will then shoot for those. Also met with Kylie to get her input on what worked well and what didn't in terms of comments, feedbacks, public input into the Historic District Commission's guidelines, because that was a very similar document. So that was useful. We'll be incorporating into that what worked and what didn't. So yeah, and then I think after that, we're hoping to have on November 10th a public meeting. Our initial meeting is really going to be to get input on the users groups that we should be incorporating into our design, our user personas, in terms of, who do we think is using the parks? Who should we be targeting our designs for? It will be a series of different people. And then we will also sort of schedule some follow-up meetings there, where we'll be getting people to tell us, based on, stepping into the shoes of these users, what they would want in terms of what their requirements are, what's there for them, what's not there for them, how they would change things, what they keep the same, et cetera. So yes, that's where we are.
Good. Sounds good. Thank you. Other committee reports, we have Trails Committee that's not meeting yet, anything that I know of yet.
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody running it at the time.
Not yet. We'll have to get started on that. Financial Committee doesn't have anything going on yet?
No.
No? Okay. And we have the Search Committee.
Yeah, we've actually been calling ourselves the hiring committee.
Hiring Committee, okay.
So, yeah, we actually are moving forward. We've had a couple of meetings. We had agreed on the wording of what we wanted to put on. So I have spent the last couple of days starting to post things. So it is the job announcement is now on the city website. It will appear in the Independent tomorrow, that comes out tomorrow, and the Lovely Citizen on Thursday, as you suggested directing people to go to the city website. Applications need to come to me, to my email account. And we also have the job announcement up on the National, I always get the name of this wrong, National Parks and Recreation Association website, starting today. And it's also, they have an Arkansas chapter, and it's also up on their website. We do have a couple more places we'd like to put it, and hopefully that will happen over the next few days. The closing date is November 9th, so 3 weeks from tomorrow. And if the people that contact you, like as Ruth has been experiencing, if you can just tell them to go to the city website and read the job description and then apply to me. And we don't have another meeting set up, but we will meet sometime before the closing date so we can set up the procedures for dealing with the resumes as they come in. For right now, they're just going to come to me, and I will hold on to them until we come up with a procedure.
Okay. I had some questions for Kim in anticipation of the fact that if there's any FOIA situations to go on, and hopefully I'll talk to her the next day or so to find out, because we do realize these resumes and applications are public, but when Scott and I were talking about, are they like bids? Do we, we have an open date and a close date for receiving them. So from what I could find when I was reading them, I haven't spoken to Kim about it specifically, until the closed date, they are still confidentially being gathered and kept. Once the end of your receiving date, then they'll all be open. Then they would be considered.
Public, though.
Yeah.
Not
Well,
public, I'm using the word public, but they're FOIA-able, sorry.
Yeah, and
I'm
one thing that I just learned from Jerry yesterday.
Redacted when FOIA.
Jerry told me yesterday, and he
Oh,
says it's
good.
very, very important. Each candidate is referred to by candidate number, not name.
Okay, okay,
They do have privacy when they can't.
good. I wondered
can't
what that
release
was, okay.
emails and telephone numbers and addresses and anything like that. So it's candidate 1, candidate 2. He said until you actually offer and accept the job, it's always candidate, is how they're referred by candidate number.
Okay, thank you, good. That's why I said public, you're right. I'm glad you corrected me. It's not public, it's just,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
Nobody's looking at them, I guess, really until
Yeah.
until they're,
it's closed.
Yeah, the other thing is before any resumes or information is released, they need to be redacted, so they would have to go through Jerry anyway, so
Right,
we
okay.
would not be releasing anything without going through the city and Jerry.
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
okay, that clears that up. Anything else? Seems like I had another question for y'all. So you don't have another meeting time other than,
No,
But
it will be sometime before the closing, which is November 9th, so
okay,
we may not meet for the next week or two.
yeah. Because you can do some of your stuff by email and stuff to each other anyway, can't you?
Right,
And text
pretty much,
calls, and
yeah.
a lot of it can be,
Yeah.
especially once you get to that point. And, yeah, you've been in touch with Jerry, so you know that information. That was all my questions. Any other questions from anybody else from the hiring committee? Any other committee reports? Old business, I have none on the agenda. New business, we have before us the third quarter financial statements. We've all seen them? Yes?
I've seen them online. Were there extra copies? I could have printed off my own.
Not
but I
extra
didn't.
copies, there's mine if you'd like.
Are you okay without them?
Yeah, if there's
You know
a
them by
if there's a
heart?
question asked of me, I may have to have it back for a moment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
Shoot.
I've reviewed them in detail down at the office with Scott.
Okay.
I have no issue.
Should we have a motion for approve first, or do we need to have some more comments before we get ready for discussion? No? Anybody ready to make a
I would
motion?
make a motion to
Okay.
approve the financial, third quarter financial statements as Scott has presented them.
Ms. Mark,
I'll second that.
Ms. Sue for a second. Discussion? All in favor of approving the third quarter financial statements, say aye.
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 Chair votes aye. Motion passes 4-0. Third quarter financial statements are done. The next thing it says here, discuss purchase of vehicles. The approved purchase of used vehicles without use of a bidding process would be a question for Scott, I believe, here.
Thank you. I know that sounds a little vague, so it's that we're in a little bit of a quandary. You might recall our budget already established that there would be $40,000 that we can use to pay for a new vehicle. It's very sorely needed. We actually started to look earlier in the year, and the prices of vehicles were just outrageous, and vehicles were very scarce at the time. So we did not acquire a vehicle then. There was also an issue of the way it was worded when the commission first approved the $40,000 for the purchase of the vehicle. It anticipated that we would pay for that from the sale of two other vehicles that we had. There was a flatbed trailer, or truck, excuse me, that did sell, and there's a dump truck that we did not sell.
Right.
Now, so what has happened is that staff has decided, the more they use that dump truck, that, no, we really need a dump truck. So it was not sold. It was actually, we did attempt to auction it, because that's what I had presented to the commission, and we didn't even get our reserve price. So it was one of those things that everyone was kind of happy that we didn't sell it. I then, later in June, I believe it was, asked for an amended budget, and that amended budget included $40,000 for the vehicles, for a vehicle, and it did not specifically have language in there that it was to be taken from the proceeds of the sale of the dump truck and the flatbed. And that was because we hadn't even started the sale yet. I could look at this as though, because that second budget, the amended budget, didn't tie it to the sale of the dump truck and the flatbed, that we can go ahead and acquire that, but I figured that was kind of enough of a gray area that I really better bring it back to the commission to see whether or not, under the current budget that does say $40,000 for the acquisition of a vehicle, whether I'm still authorized to spend that since we did not sell the dump truck. I will say that, first of all, as you've all just seen, because you approved the financials, we are way ahead. We are ahead on income, and should continue to be well ahead at the end of the year, and our expenditures are way behind. So the point is, we do have the funds and we do have the need for that vehicle. The question is, I think the prudent thing would be if somebody was inclined to make a motion, whether it be that we are authorized to acquire a vehicle for up to $40,000, even now that the auction has taken place and we didn't sell the dump truck. That might clarify things. Am I making myself clear as to why I have some concern about buying the vehicle without?
Sure. Yeah.
You're further,
Yeah.
okay.
So,
And
can I just ask, how much money did we get from the sale of the trailer?
I don't recall specifically for the sale of it was a flatbed truck.
Flatbed, sorry.
That wouldn't have been very much. That vehicle was, it was a few $1,000s. That vehicle was not functional. We total, though, for all of our auctioned items, got a little over $25,000. And so that's good. The second issue, though, and this probably needs to be brought back. Right now, I'm just concerned about the $40,000 and buying the vehicle we need. The gardener's vehicle was totaled as well.
Right.
We did get I think it was $9,000 for that, which was astonishing that we would get even half that. But we are going to need eventually to replace that as well. All I'm asking for us to do now is clarify this $40,000 if we can acquire a vehicle, notwithstanding the fact that we still have a dump truck. The second half of that, it could be two motions even, but the second issue is that we would probably rather not buy a brand new vehicle, just for, you buy a vehicle that's even just a few months old and it's substantially less. So we would like to buy a used vehicle, a slightly used vehicle. We do run into some problems with the open bidding process, though. So I've checked with the finance department. They've explained it like this. First of all, we do have, the state has negotiated fleet vehicle prices with various auto dealers, but that's not really going to work for us for two reasons. Number one, I've looked several times this year, and the vehicles, regardless of negotiated prices, the vehicles are not available. Secondly, we're not looking for a new vehicle. So that leaves us to where we can't get 3 bids like we would normally do when we're purchasing something. If we're buying a used vehicle, we have some general guidelines, like we're going to know, well, we want it between 2 and 4 years old, and we want, we want it to be able to pull X number of pounds. So we're going to have some basic requirements, but it's not like a brand-new vehicle where you can send off to 3 different dealers and ask them for prices for this specific vehicle. So when I asked the finance department how we deal with that, they said, yeah, all I have to do is ask for the commission for permission to deviate from the requirement of getting 3 bids. Again, when you're buying a used vehicle, it's
That's been done before over the years
Right.
for buying, because used vehicles, government moves too slowly for buying a used vehicle. The bid process takes too long. It's gone by the time you can get it that way.
Yes.
And that is,
I would imagine, I mean, the state procurement laws that apply to us also, I doubt it has anything that says, the commission can just decide you don't have to bid something. But I mean, I totally get the used vehicle thing, and I'm sure there's a time constraint on that. I mean, bidding out to 3 dealerships, that makes no sense. I mean, you just can't do that.
Yeah.
But before I would agree to that, I would want you to have a comprehensive list of what your requirement is in the vehicle,
Sure, yes.
and then at least go look at 3 different ones and put that in a spreadsheet and say, we chose this one because of this, and let's document why we would pick one.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, over just, hey,
Due
my friend
diligence.
Joe has one down at the Auto Mart, and
Right.
I would like it to be really legitimately researched and based on what our real needs are.
Sure, yes.
And then the second question I have for you on this is, we were expecting to get a new car, then we lost one,
Yes.
or new truck. Can we not find a way to get a replacement for that and this truck this year? And don't we really need it?
Possibly. What I want to do first is find out what we find. Like, for instance, and the reason this has come up right now, because we have been searching, and Sam came across, I think it was Sam, came across a vehicle that, gosh, I think it was 4 years old, but it only had something like 8,000 miles on it. And it had everything we needed. It was just not used a lot. And I'm like, I can't really do that. I need, if we are going to deviate from, we either have to go through the bidding process where we have specific specs and we send it off to at least 3 dealers and get their prices, or if, as we are now, we're getting a used one, we can deviate from that. And yes, I could certainly report back to the commission as to what we ultimately bought and why. But and in fact, I could include at least 2 other similar vehicles that we looked at.
for comparison purposes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think also you're using the word deviate from the bidding process. I don't think a motion would be, to deviate from the process. It would be something along the lines of, we approve up to this certain amount for you to search for a used vehicle, for you to do comparative pricing and buy. I don't think those words deviating wouldn't really be part of it, I would think. All right,
Yeah.
go ahead, I'm sorry, Sue, go ahead.
No,
And this sort of thing does happen. In fact, we did it recently. I don't recall what. There was like if you're purchasing something where there's a sole source, for instance, that provides what you're looking for. The requirement of getting 3 bids is not hard and fast, as long as the way the finance department explained it was the process that we're going through now, me asking the commission for the ability to go in this method is what keeps the process honest, if you will, that it's all out in the open. We're not report back to you as to why we bought a particular vehicle.
Document your search and justify the
Exactly.
purchase on
Right.
paper. And then back to your question about a motion versus, so we had the motion in a meeting, the motion was made, but we've also approved the budget without that part about the auction in there, so. But it's the.
Police,
Yes,
let-
go ahead. Yeah, let's think about it.
I will move that we authorize Scott to purchase a used vehicle without the use of the full formal bidding process based on a search.
I'm trying to write.
Okay, yeah.
So I got to used vehicle.
To use the vehicle, okay. Without the use of the bidding process, with the requirement of a documented
Comparison.
And comparative analysis.
comparative analysis.
Of
Thank
at
you, that's
least
the
3
word.
vehicles.
Did we get that out?
Yeah, I like that.
Sue, could you read that back to us?
Yeah, just a moment, I'm still writing. Yeah. We motion to allow Scott to purchase a used vehicle without the use of the bidding process with a requirement of a documented analysis of at least 3 vehicles that are
Comparative analysis.
of comparative analysis.
And defined specifications.
Sorry, what was that?
And
So
define,
based on defined specifications.
Okay.
okay.
I think
Read it
might
one more time, Sue?
Yeah, I was going to say, it
One
might
more
be
time.
smart to do that
Yes,
one more time.
yeah, okay. We allow Scott to purchase a used vehicle without the use of the bidding process with the requirement of a documented comparative analysis of at least 3 vehicles based on defined specifications.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I second. Oh, I
Wait,
made,
wait, okay.
we did it together.
So someone seconded? Okay.
Yes.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 And chair votes aye. That's, motion passes 4-0.
And I think Mark had asked about, I never answered about the second vehicle.
Yeah.
Yes, sorry.
I think what we want to do is see what we get, see how much we have left over. And because we've talked about how we would swap vehicles. The Gardner's vehicle, for instance, doesn't have to have a lot of power. We may take one of the vehicles that someone else has, reassign it, and then we'll know, okay, well, we need this kind of vehicle instead. So we're not in such a need that we need both of them immediately. We can get the first one and then reassess our needs at that
Yeah,
time.
well, please come back to us when you know you need one, because I think that's kind of an important thing, not have people driving their own personal cars
yes.
around loading
Very-
trees in the back of it or whatever.
Well, and believe me, we tried earlier. In fact, it was Commissioner Rulli had made the comment. We were about to purchase one, and he commented about how expensive vehicles were at the time. And when I looked at the prices, I realized, gosh, he was right. And
He is
just-
right. And
He
in
was.
fairness, new cars may be cheaper to buy than previously owned
Yes.
cars sometimes.
I just bought one for,
Expensive, you can't not pay for it just because it's expensive right now. You have
Right.
to have what you have
Right.
to have. And I feel like we want to make sure we have what we
Yes.
need.
Yeah, we are at the point we need at least the one, and then we'll assess where we're at.
okay. That's good. What's next? Commissioner comments. Let's go this way. Mark, any commissioner comments?
No additional comments from me.
Sue?
Yeah, I have one as we're coming up to budget time. In fact, Scott raised the subject. This is something that I don't think necessarily would come up for a commission decision other than it would be in the budget, but I want to just kind of put this idea to Scott as he's considering the budget and staffing. And I have worked in parks where there has been 2 kinds of rangers. One has been law enforcement, but the other has been not law enforcement, but out meeting with the public, telling them about rules, maybe doing some interpretation. And as this park, we have very limited law enforcement. They'll come for issues, but they're not regularly patrolling and keeping an eye on things. And I want you to consider that maybe that would be a good idea to have someone who does that. It doesn't need to be a full-time position. It could be a part-time position or someone who's doing something else during the week and spends a little time on the weekends, in town parks and at Leatherwood and Black Bass. Especially now we have a lot of rules, and so just to make sure it will be an education, not an enforcement procedure. It's the kind of position that some people absolutely love it because it's talking to people. Other people, it's the worst job in the world. So it needs to be someone who either agrees to it or is hired with that understanding to be doing that, rather than just putting someone who doesn't want it. But I think it would really benefit us to have some more eyes and ears around and keep an eye of what's going and have those interactions with the public. They can also be really helpful of like recommending trails and just making sure people have a good user experience.
Like an interpreter. Like you have like a docent, interpreter, public outreach. That would be...
Yeah.
Well, the position that I was referencing earlier, I had something like that in mind.
Okay, cool.
Naturalist position would be the job title that comes to mind, but they wouldn't necessarily have to have a degree in that, maybe a degree in botany or something. But to be able to handle to handle the programs that we've been trying to implement, including things like, we had a comment again this evening about before we do trail work or something, who makes the decision about how much assessment do we have to do this particular job? So the job that I have in mind would include all of that, absolutely. Interpretive, the ability to give interpretive talks and that sort of thing. So I'm glad to hear there's some interest in something like that. Maybe it'll actually get approved.
Yeah, well, what I was discussing was not necessarily to do with natural history, although they could get tied together, and especially there is an overlap with that interpretive idea, but it would be someone who would be, really know the rules and regulations and also really know the parks and can answer questions and just be out there, to provide information to the public. As I said, it could be a part-time position, so they could do, what you were thinking of in the week and do this on the weekends. But there is some difference there.
Well, the
You think maybe
enforcement, I would think that word would come down to our city as a city. Leatherwood's a city park. State parks have their own, they have rangers, things that they have enforcement officials. We don't have the ability to have an actual enforcer. I mean, we could use the police, of course, but we can't afford that. They can't afford it. We don't need that.
Yeah.
So I don't really know what you mean by enforcement, but I guess I'm...
Well, I was saying that they wouldn't, they cannot really do the enforcement side. They would not be issuing tickets.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, but they would be able to do the education side of it. They're just keeping an eye and ears. They may be the person that ends up calling the police if they see something really bad, but I think most of the time, if they see someone transgressing, they could just point out that and educate people so they hopefully won't do it the next time.
A combination of enforcement and...
Yeah, it's definitely not a heavy law
like
enforcement.
a ranger, but not...
Yeah.
Is the commission responsible for the organizational design, like the org structure of the parks office? Or
No,
is that
stuff it would be Scott. So I'm just making just a suggestion to Scott. Other than it may or may not end up in the budget, we wouldn't necessarily get to vote on this. But I just wanted to put it out there as an idea as Scott is considering the budget.
I just wasn't sure, so thank you for the clarification.
Yeah. And then the other thing I have on the budget is just a request to Ruth. Last year, we were told we were going to have a workshop to discuss the budget, and then it never happened. And we ended up with one meeting where we were kind of under pressure to approve it. And I would really like to request that this year we do have a workshop and a chance to discuss it, and so we can really be clear on what we're voting on before we actually come to that meeting and have the vote on it.
Well, on that note, again, Scott will remind us, and I'll remind us for Scott, we can do our homework ahead of time, of course, even before that workshop. Just make sure we don't use the workshop as our first contact with the budget. I think that sometimes happens. We used to, a long time ago, do day-long retreats to do the budget. Parks did once a year. Good and bad. A day-long retreat is all you need when you do that. But again, you still have to come. You have to have all your questions answered before you get there. You have all the discussion. I don't think this format allows for a proper workshop discussion of a budget anyway. It almost needs to be a place where we can actually work, a table, sitting down, talking to each other. So I don't know, we should revisit that for sure, but I want to make sure it's not on the same kind of workshop we usually do right here.
it would be useful to have dates for when the budget's due, when the first submission's due, all the sort of key dates that are probably already available, because I'm not aware of them.
Okay.
That would be quite helpful, and I'm sure Lori probably isn't either.
Okay, let's get them, let's
Yeah.
get those passed
I'm not
out.
either. I really would like to
idea.
understand the budget process that, and it not be, again, like Sue was mentioning, that, oh, y'all got to hurry up and decide this today, and you
No,
haven't
you're
had
right.
time
That's
to
a good
look at
idea.
it.
I think that's a good idea. We should look at the dates. I'll get them from Scott, pass them out. We'll talk about, I'll
Yeah.
call it a retreat for that, for lack of a better word for it. I don't want it to be 8 hours like they were before, but
Yeah.
Draxie used to bring food, so it was okay.
But
I could
if-
have, and I'll have a draft done for the next workshop and try to get it out at least a week in advance.
Okay.
And then I think, so the two things that'll be at our next workshop, unless I hear otherwise, will be budget
Mm-hmm.
and a quick review of the, or not so quick as the case may be, review of the bylaws.
Bylaws. Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. My understanding of this is that it needs to be approved this year, so we have a budget as they start next year. So,
But it would be nice to
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
know,
yeah.
I'm going to be getting a draft on this date. I
Right.
have X number of days to review it before
Yeah.
it needs to be sent to this person. So
Yeah.
to have that mapped out would be really
yeah,
useful.
I understand. I'm just trying to.
I need deadlines.
And Ruth, correct me if I'm not right, but I'm just hoping, just to give you just a general idea. So it basically means it needs to be approved by our December meeting.
Okay.
And they
It'd still
usually
be
aren't.
useful to work
They often
backwards.
aren't.
Okay.
And I think that January is still, if it isn't, which has happened
Yeah.
before, we can get together and have another meeting. I think the most important, well, when does council meet that we present to them?
We always get it to them the first
1st of January, right?
day of the,
Yeah, so I'm saying if we missed that third week in
Right.
December, we've got the next week to meet separately if we need to or something like that.
Yeah, it would have to
It's
be a
getting it to
special meeting.
council after that, and that's in January, basically.
and it,
So in order to formally request that we get dates and timelines, and Scott has this amount of time to get stuff to us, we have this amount of time, do I need to make a motion to have kind of an outline of the dates and due times? Okay.
I don't think so. I'm made a little note
you.
here, and we'll just.
'Cause,
that way.
yeah, I
think that'd be
just
useful.
need time, and I need to know how much time I have, and I think everyone's the same. If it's going to be 2 days, I'll make it a priority. If I've got 10 days, I'll probably wait till the last 2, but I'll know what that deadline is. So
Okay.
that would be super helpful.
I'll
I
talk-
could send out a proposed timeline
Sure.
tomorrow or the next day.
Yeah, if you've got time to do that, that'd be great. Thanks, Scott. Okay. Anything else? Sorry?
Yeah, there is another question that I now have as to that. I don't think I heard a date, a tentative date for actually hiring a new director. Is there one yet or not?
There is not. I mean, it's really hard to know how long the process is going to take, how long it's going to reach people, how many people we're going to want to interview. So we're just work through it expeditiously, but we do not have a date.
It would just be good for that person, if we could work it out that way, to have some sort of input, even if the budget's like done and they're just reviewing it. I mean, they may have some things that they want that, if it's possible that that person, or even, well, at any rate, I think you hear what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Is that-
I think a
is
target
that-
hiring date's a good idea for multiple reasons, because if you really need or want or should retire at the end of this year, this is 2022, December 16th, 17th, 18th, where the last payroll is,
Yeah.
you should be done, basically,
Yeah, that's, yeah.
or could be. If we don't know whether we're able to hire, we need to know ahead of time if we need to have an interim, if we need to have
Yeah.
a backup plan, if we haven't hired someone, or if it's going to take 6 months, or if no one's applied. So I think
Yeah,
that a target hiring date would be good, knowing that if in a plan, that if you get to that hiring date and you don't have anybody yet, your plan is this, interim or
Extension.
Yeah.
extension or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I know, I was looking, because I've been looking at the old documents. I know last time through, we had a hiring date of July 1st, and I don't think we hired Scott till the middle of August.
HR assistants, because there are ways to sort of like screen through. You can hire people that will screen for keywords. You can actually run your CVs through, apps that will search for keywords and screen out people based on they don't have these keywords, which would significantly reduce the amount of time.
I don't think we're going to have
They won't have that many.
number of resumes that I think probably one of the, what Sue's trying to say is, you might get 2 applications, and maybe that's not sufficient, and so setting a date at this point,
The other extreme.
we might not, maybe I think I think we could set a date, and maybe we will discuss that and say, okay, we can set a date, this is what our target date would be, which is what we'd like to have somebody involved.
Yeah, target date, and then a plan for if that's not possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Target date and the plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it also can make a difference. If we hire somebody locally, they likely could start a lot sooner than if we hire someone from out of town that has to move here.
Yeah.
So, and if we had a good candidate from out of town, I'd want to give them the time to make that move.
Good point.
Yeah.
Anything else, Sue, your comments?
No, that's it.
No? Carissa?
Nothing.
Is that it?
Do we have minutes? Right?
Put minutes.
Minutes.
And this is for September 20th, 2022.
Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from September 20th, 2022?
I move to approve the minutes from September 20th,
20th?
20th, yes.
2022.
It's Carissa, do I have a second?
I'll second.
It's Mark. All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Motion passes 4-0. Minutes are approved. Before we adjourn, I want to say thank you for getting the budget done, Scott. That's a lot of work. And thank you, Mark, for helping with that, too. It's really, reading through it was so easy. It's so well done. I so appreciate this.
Oh.
Over the years of doing different budgets, different sizes, it's like now it's just so easy. You read it all and go, I get it, I understand, I know what all this is. Done. Thank you. I just appreciate that. Also in budget, I just want to make sure we remind ourselves someday, because we have so much money in parks, haha, I'm kidding, but we will have it in our budget someday to think about a shop. The truck thing makes me think about it again. Remind ourselves, remind ourselves, remind ourselves. Repairing a vehicle that needs a new water pump or whatever, things like that, that can't easily be done right now because we don't have our own shop. It's been discussed at parks for years. Just want to make sure it stays somewhere, back burner, front burner, wherever, that's all.
Yeah, and that has been added into the budget, so.
Okay.
yeah.
What does the city do, out of curiosity, for their vehicles? Same thing we do?
I had the same
I
question.
said, what does the city do for their vehicles to be repaired? Do they have a
I don't know
shop?
what the other, like the police department, fire department, I think they outsource it. I don't think any of them have a position for somebody who does maintenance like we do, so.
Like Public Works and all that has to have
Would
lots
there
of
be economies
vehicles.
of scale if
Yeah.
we
It might be.
collaborated?
Well, but Public Works has that, they might have stuff down there that I don't really know, down there with the recycling and all that. Maybe there is a shop down there we don't know about. Who knows?
I'll ask at our next department head.
Yeah, that'd be good to know. And yeah, I think that's important to keep reminding ourselves, Parks needs a shop, Parks needs a shop. It's in the budget, we have it, it's good. Okay, that's all I've got. A motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
That's Mark. Second?
Second.
Carissa, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye. Chair votes aye. 4-0. We are adjourned.